Oh, hear us, Aaron?
I can hear you, but it's very soft. It's very kind of hard to hear from here.
I'm gonna put it right here.
Pop it right in there.
Is that a little better?
It's still about the same. It might be my end. I'm trying to figure out if there's another way of changing the volume.
Okay. Well, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. In attendance, we have Nate Nardi Cyrus. We have Karen Spetz, Aaron Stelma online, Dan McGinnis, and myself, Steve Ibane. Is there anyone else on the line? Not announced? Okay. Did we publish the meeting minutes? I think we did. Yeah. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes? Any edits, additions, subtractions?
Motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
I shouldn't second. I wasn't there. So
Oh,
you can second it.
Or Aaron could.
well.
I
Aaron,
second it.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. New business. Northwest Connecticut Land Conservation grant application. So we were just
Oh, we were just talking about it.
discussing it. So, did you have any thoughts on that, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, we already had that conversation, Aaron. You probably didn't hear too much of it. But yeah, we received a request to provide a letter of support from Northwest Connecticut Land Conservancy for a new application. I believe it was over 600 acres, like 630 something acres of agricultural and forested land in Litchfield and Torrington. But about 40 of those is actually in Torrington. So we haven't provided a letter of support. That deadline kind of lapsed, but I think we could still pitch one in with from the city planner on tomorrow with, if everyone here is supportive of it, which I think you are.
I would. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused. It's a grant application?
Yeah, it's for the state. I'm forgetting the acronym, but the open space and whatever their open space fund, acquisition fund.
Okay, so it's up in the air whether or not they'll get.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
grant?
They haven't gotten the funding for it yet.
Okay.
But I guess they have a willing buyer and they have donation. I assume it'll be like a bargain sale or something like that. Or maybe it's a full sale and they just have a willing buyer. I'm not sure of the details of the transaction. They just wanted to know if we're supportive of the land being conserved fee simple. So yeah.
It was complicated. My understanding was that there was the original owners of the farm had passed on years ago, and it was divided between 3 children, and they were most family members are getting up there in age now, and the concern was they were going to divide up the properties, and some of it would be developed. And this way, this purchase will keep it all together into one big parcel. And that there's other lands adjoining probably all sides of it, which would be a nice addition to that in terms of a wildlife corridor and just preserving some very pristine spaces. So, and there's a lot of nice history there too. So some of the oldest farmland in the area that was first settled, and which also some Indian Native American settlements in there. So it's a very interesting piece of property.
So this is quick and dirty. The red is the property. I believe I didn't count the acreage. Some of it might be retained for sale or for the heirs, but that's all the properties owned by Litchfield Farms Inc., which is the company, the landholding entity right now. So it's quite a substantial amount of property, and this is the Torrington piece here. So forested wetlands, large hay meadow. The meadow, I mean, you can see the hayfield itself is, at least 10 acres, 12 acres. It's huge. When you go by it, it's very obvious.
Yeah. Well, what they wanted to keep, they had some stipulation to keep it, farmland too. So they were using certain spaces of that for farm. So I don't know if this, a different group was trying to preserve it than that the one that's looking to purchase it now.
Are there
So-
buildings on some of this?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah,
Houses?
Yep. There's the farmstead itself with barns and houses
Okay.
where people live, and then there's on the Torrington spot part. There's also a house.
What are they gonna do with that?
Lease it to tenants,
yeah.
demolish it. I mean, I assume that they would at least start by leasing it.
Okay, this little
Maybe they'd
piece
have a
right
ca-
here.
Yeah, maybe they'd have a caretaker or probably lease it to tenant farmers if they're gonna have a like a lease agreement with them.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of farms. So it started off as a town farm back in the 1800s. So if you know the history on town farms, it's like if you got into trouble
It's a
for
poorhouse.
all sorts of reasons, you were sentenced to work on a farm. And
There was also a poorhouse back then.
so
I don't know if that's showing up at all, but
Yeah.
this is my poor attempt.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then this is the Torrington part.
so-
And you can see that hashing, that's the Silicon Ranch property that we've been talking about so much, the solar development. So it's kind of nice to at least have this as
yeah,
a large consolation. When you see the scale of how big that project is and then how big this one is,
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive. But anyway, so yeah, if everyone, I mean, I don't know that we actually have to pass a motion here. I mean, you can,
We
saying that
probably
you're in
would better.
support.
I
Why
recommend, I make a motion, the commission send a letter of support.
I agree. Motion carries. It's just a nice thing to do for such a.
Yeah.
Well, what
preserving
we'll
nice
do
piece of
is,
land.
Jeremy will send it and then we'll say that there was a,
Yeah.
support from
Yeah,
the Conservation
Conservation.
Commission as a part of that.
That's fine.
Okay, east side flooding issues?
Yeah, I promised to bring this to, not as far east as you.
I was gonna say, I don't know about any flooding issues. What are these flooding issues?
Not that far east. So this was in the most recent kind of extreme downpour event where I know I was happened to be driving through on South Main Street and it was completely covered in water, just because the storm drains can't handle the volume. But on the east side of town, well, going up the hill, so like if you're going up East Main Street, all of the development kind of to the, what is that, south of East Main Street and New Harwinton Road, Route 4, those areas there's a lot of streams that are like small streams that are daylighted and then piped, daylighted, piped, all the way down the hill. And they'll be daylighted for a block, piped for 2 blocks, and daylighted.
Wow.
And there's several streams like that in that part of town.
Mhm.
With all of these events, I think that there had been flooding issues building, and all of those, basically the flooding jumped over the road because it couldn't handle the volume through there.
The pipes weren't big enough.
Right, and there's basically, if it was all piped, there'd be problems, but there wouldn't be stuff clogging them.
Clogging the pipe.
So there's a lot of issues with maintenance of all of those in and out.
Yeah.
And so there was really extensive flooding. The mayor got involved. They had to go out and sandbag some people's houses because water jumped the street and were like flowing, like surrounding people's houses. Because if you've ever driven around those neighborhoods, it's like in the vicinity of Darling Street, like that kind of area.
Yeah.
So our engineering department came in, the mayor came in, and they wanted to see if maybe the Conservation Commission could help with some kind of outreach effort to these neighborhoods to help kind of promote stewardship of their streams and properties and
So the people actually own the stream.
yes. So the city can't really do much about the actual maintenance of the property off of city land, and they're hopeful that they were asking if the Conservation Commission would be interested in kind of doing some kind of educational campaign. How that looks, would be a bigger conversation. It's very complicated when it comes to wetlands, and that as well, because we regulate you know, I mean, I generally don't go after people for trees that fall in the stream because that happens.
Yeah.
And
What was it, debris clogging the pipes now, or?
Who
it was
owns the
part
pipe?
of it.
Who owns
Well,
pipe?
the city owns, so you'd have see, I have some pictures. So this is one complaining neighbor. So, you can see that's Clearview. And
Okay.
the stream comes out of the woods here.
Yeah.
And it hit the pipe and it just, there was some, I don't know if there was a blockage in there or something happened and it came out through here, but then also that wasn't enough and it came over the road and through their property.
Is this the first time this is happening?
No, it's been getting worse and worse. Part of that is these extreme
Mhm.
rain events. It's like it was and not engineered in a smart way. It was done piecemeal and
Well, it was also
Um,
engineered probably for,
for a different flood interval.
50-year storm and you're getting a 100-year storm.
Yeah, right.
Guess what?
Yeah, and so they're just, I mean, that's been acknowledged, right? But it's
Mhm.
like, what can we do about it? Part of it is encouraging landowners to keep their streams kind of clean, but that's a double-edged sword because we don't want people just like
Clear cut.
clear cutting and stoning in the rivers and
Mhm.
making
Yeah.
a channel going down that they
You don't wanna
wetlands
channelize
probably
it.
wouldn't permit that. So it's kind of wetlands did, and I didn't print it out. I'm sorry. I can circulate this to the commission. A number of years ago, I think the Wetlands Commission published it's a guide for streamside owners, basically explaining what's regulated and what's not.
That'd be a good place for us to start.
And so maybe we at the next meeting, if everyone's interested in kind of discussing this further, I can put together some more like what we have as far as educational materials.
So what are the recommendations from the engineering?
They don't really know what to do with this.
That's one, so I'm not sure what
Yeah,
our role would be, because it almost seems like you'd have to study the whole,
You have
you
to
know,
have each
what,
one.
what would actually
each
what we
stream.
actually want done, like what, the
Yeah.
recommendations we'd want to make to people. Is that what you're saying? Like,
right, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
if we're gonna get involved, you kind of need to know what should be done and what to,
Right.
are the storm drains draining into these streams for each street?
yeah, I mean,
it seems
there's
like
no, it's a complicated area. There's obviously there's a river crossing the street, and then there's also storm drains. The river's passing through, but then there's storm drains dumping into it as well.
sounds to me like the town needs to hire a firm to make recommendations.
Yeah,
And then you
And
can
then
take that
we could do that.
information
Yeah, that,
to the, the people or
that makes,
whatever,
that
you
makes a
know,
lot of
but
sense.
Do you know if there's a history of this happening? I mean,
oh yeah. That's what one. So this is one instance, and then just downstream of this is where I said it actually jumped over the street, like in this case, and then went down the road because the road's curved till it gets to this woman's house. It's not curved, and she's on a slope like this. Like the house is built on top at grade with the road, and then it slopes down. And she's got an in-ground pool, and all the water was just pouring into the pool, and then like filling up beyond the pool and kind of making a giant basin at the bottom
like
of
I'm
the hill.
wondering if there's places along the way where you can detour the the flow, or
Put a pond in.
yeah.
maybe some rain gardens, or it's
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
like it's got a,
If there's more than one stream, it means you gotta study each stream. Who owns what,
Hmm.
what's the size of the pipes. Also, because what you're gonna do eventually is you're gonna undermine those roads. At some point, you probably, because it hits the back end up there, it's coming down. The other side of that road, where you see it, it's gonna hit
yeah.
and start pushing the eroding that away.
and then this is kind of a separate sort of issue. This is actually a different storm event, but these are the people complaining. However, this was all woods. They
Well,
cleared,
Yeah,
and then they didn't get a permit to armor the stream or do any kind of restoration to it. So it's just getting
Right.
hacked away. They put some wood chips down,
Yeah.
and a couple small perennial
Oh, that's
bushes.
nice.
And,
It stayed intact.
and now they're complaining that the tree's coming down and all this stuff. I
But
actually,
the tree is on whose property?
the private property.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
take
actually
trees
talked,
down.
I talked to these people before and I said, you know, they were like, well, can we pipe it? Oh, no, they wanted the city to pipe it.
Of course.
And I said, well, I can't tell you. I mean, if you have these issues, you know, you'd have to go to wetlands and ask to pipe it. They may deny you or ask you to, you know, ask for an alternative like armoring it or something. As a, if you're getting horrible flooding like this, you know, they may be sympathetic. But that you have,
It was a stream before this?
what? This is what it looked like that stormy day. This was just a normal
It's a
storm.
normal, just, you can see
Yeah.
it's dirty too, so it's
Oh yeah, it's all.
erosion.
But I don't see any stream rocks or anything. I
No,
mean, where's
yeah,
the,
you don't see it, but it may
this-
be high.
What, the bottom, the stream bottom?
yeah, there's no sides. It's just all
Right.
dirt, right? So what was it before?
They cut all, there was trees. They cut all the trees down and put lawn in, but didn't
There's
stabilize it.
vegetation rolling it all together.
Yeah.
I don't
so-
think that was a good plan.
So the,
As being demonstrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be a exorbitant fee to pipe it.
so what I'm
And
hearing,
it's just gonna pass the problem farther downstream.
what I'm hearing is the recommendation would be for the city to get a professional
Good, yeah.
engineer to study.
What needs to be
I
done.
guess I'm just not sure what we would do or recommend to people.
Yeah. Like I said, I can
Don't
share
cut
the
trees.
piece of outreach that we have, but I don't. It would be doing something, but not something necessarily to solve the
No,
problem.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we
Well,
want to say we're doing something, and then
But you know, the thing is, you've got city ownership, private ownership, city ownership, private ownership. And, you know, whatever you do on the private, it's gonna impact what the city's pipes, which is gonna impact what the private, that the city's not, that's just a stream, that's what's gonna, you know, it's like, it's just gonna go cascading down. So you can't just do one piece and, you know, well, we'll fix this middle piece here and the city's piece and say, hey, we're good,
right.
because that's not gonna work.
Yeah, but we need a holistic view of how to manage the water there because, you know, is there something you could do to lessen the volume, like redirect the water from the storm drains to another direction or a different stream that wouldn't be as prone to flooding in that area, you know?
Question for Karen because of your expertise in this. Is there any climate change related funding for transportation planning that we could get match- we
Geez,
can
so
match at
our
least?
office just got money for it's deep, climate resilience, something.
That's,
But I don't know if that's a rolling, grant application. I can look into it. It's I don't know, deep climate resilience.
that
That's all I
sounds like
can
what
remember.
you'd be looking for.
But the funding is basically, they do an assessment and sort of like a concept level plan, not a full-blown, engineering drawings, but like just concept level of what should be done in an area to help prevent flooding issues, so.
Yeah.
I can ask.
But it's at the
them.
concept. It's not design level. It's concept
No,
level, but it
but-
could help
but it-
fund design.
It
maybe
gets you
Push
to
that.
the next step. So now you've got this concept so that when you do go for funding, you're, ahead of other people because you're like, hey, we had this study done and this is what the recommendation is. And somebody studied the hydraulics and determined, we need to put where there's a 24-inch culvert, we got to put a 48-inch culvert or something like that. It's, that's the one that I know about at the moment, but I can ask around at the office.
That'd be great. Yeah, because I know that when I was at DC in New York, they had more money for this type of stuff. They were doing money for doing fish passage assessments, which essentially you could they would assess it for whether or not American eel comes up, but also what the storm rate it for a storm frequency, and so they actually, once you get that plan, then they would fund putting a bottomless culvert in or
Yeah.
some other kind of improved crossing you know, with a storm interval that makes sense. So they'd actually fund culvert replacement and stuff like that, but like, you know, that, none of that exists
Well,
here.
so at the Naugatuck Valley COG, you know, we help our municipalities find funding for whatever they need. So what about the Northwest Hills COG? Do they, I would assume that they do the same service for municipalities. They're more in touch with the different funding sources. So they, maybe a call to them.
Yeah, yeah, I have note to do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and at one point they were doing studies to say what you could do to get people out of this problem, you know, like flood prone areas. And I don't know if that's probably, I don't know if Torrington ever did, because it was supposed to be done at the municipal level. But what do you do to flood, you know, buy property, raise, you know, all that kind of stuff, raise the house, buy the
Yeah.
property, you know.
Yeah, that was to what the COG was
The
coordinating
COG
that?
was, yeah, COG
Okay,
was
so
doing.
maybe they would, yeah, I'll follow up with them and see. We
They
just
may
did,
have a study floating around.
we just, through the Nature Conservancy, were any of you on that for, we did, I know Christine was, but you were on that, Steve, with that, like, climate resilient assessment. It
Yeah.
was like, they basically got all the public works and police, emergency response, city officials, departments, and like, had a big round table
The
on.
hazard mitigation.
Yeah,
That's
Not-
it
it wasn't-
hasn't meant,
it
that's a
wasn't-
study, that's it.
Okay.
Right, this wasn't the
That's what I was
hazard
thinking of.
mitigation plan, it was something done by the Nature Conservancy, kind of to supplement that, but more like,
Okay.
we're gonna have a climate change related conversation and talk about strengths. It's like a strengths weaknesses with SWOT, strengths weaknesses, I remember. But we did that, and so that kind of generated a lot of ideas, but it wasn't really, it was more like a supplement, almost like one of those like stakeholder activity type things that would supplement a larger plan,
Well, this deep
freestanding.
grant, it's more than that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely, you're gonna get a report for each location. I think, I forget how many locations were at Naugatuck Valley.
Right, and you did it, or the COG probably did it for the entire region.
Well, they, identified certain locations
Mhm.
and that's what went into the grant request. And those are the ones that are gonna be looked at, you know, try to prioritize and I think some of the municipalities in the region also applied for the funding separately. It didn't have to come from
Okay.
the COG, it could be
Right.
or. But a lot of those programs, you know, they solicit every year, every
Yeah.
couple of years, especially if it's a successful program.
Torrington's interesting in its flood issues because we have all of the Army Corps projects. So like the main stem of the Naugatuck is like been dredged, you know, it's deep. We have a ton of flood capacity storage that's being independently managed by the Corps. Like large scale 55 flood type thing coming in is a lot less likely than other parts of the state. But then our local fund flooding like everywhere is like same problems, you know, the inadequate infrastructure and higher rainfall. Like you can't
Right.
beat that, or areas that aren't part of the catchment of the flood control projects. Like there's the area I'm thinking is in downtown, kind of like Brook Street, you know, that like where Brook Street kind of goes and crosses East Elm Street, like by the post office and
Yeah.
stuff. Out in
That's
that direction, that stream is
Yeah.
not, you know, that kind of just takes all the water off the highway
Yeah.
and then comes through. So they don't have any, basically the only the flood benefit they're getting is, you know, the water doesn't back up quite as far because it pours into the dredged part of the river. So
Yeah.
maybe there's a little bit of capacity there, but anyway, it's just a bigger conversation I have.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to follow up with the Northwest Hills COG.
Yeah, I'll
See if you
check
can
with
find that funding
the people in
source.
my office about that particular funding source or any other ones that they might know about.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we done with that issue? Well, it was interesting, at least it was kind of, you know, shows us what types of issues are out there in terms of, you know, it was a quick flash flood, actually.
Is that the same one I heard on the news that in Scotland? On the other side of the state, like they had 3 bridges wash out or something?
Oh, I don't know if it was that. It was the one in Massachusetts that Mass got like 8 inches of rain or something. And we got, I mean, I don't know what we got here, but it was definitely, it's been a crazy year. And if we get a, I'm like, no hurricane, please.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. it
or
was-
tropical storm, like we would
Yeah.
just be overwhelmed.
Right.
Okay. Moving on to old business, agenda item number 5, schedule HVA wildlife crossing assessment training.
So at our last meeting, we had, Housatonic Valley Association actually came, Dan, one of their members, Julia Rogers, who's their land protection manager. And she talked a little bit about their Follow the Forest initiative, where they're, you know, trying to conserve large blocks of forest from New York up through Vermont, essentially. She had one specific project about assessing potential wildlife crossings that they had identified remotely through GIS that connect them, but they need to answer questions like, you know, I think traffic volume they could probably get from road data, but you know, some assessment of traffic volume, habitats on both sides, observed mortality, just like there was a data sheet that had kind of
Okay.
standardized set, but they offer trainings and they usually train up schools, but sometimes municipalities in doing these crossing assessments. I think Torrington had 5 or 6 or something around there. So, you know, at the last meeting, the commission expressed tentative support for, you know, getting one of these trainings done and trying to, you know, do these as a, maybe after the open space inventory or during it, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was just, might be good training for other groups around town. So we have Torrington Trails, we have the Land Trust.
Yeah.
That we are going out and just writing stewardship reports on other properties, so we can help them fill out our observations on those walks and participate in that.
Are you talking about the open space inventory or the assessment, the HVA?
The HVA.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knowing where those crossings are is, you know, potential crossings is kind of a useful piece of knowledge and, you know, kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
do we want to schedule it? I guess, do we want to actually schedule a date or do we want to just give them a time frame? Do we want to do it next year? I wasn't quite sure.
Well, when is a good time to,
Like a good time of the year.
Like-
Is there-
is fall a good time to do this?
Well, I mean, personally, I think that there's benefits to every time of year. We talked about, like, in the winter, you'd see tracks that could, if there was snow. In the spring, you might see signs of amphibian crossing or vernal pool activity or something like that. In the summer, you know, just animals are more active. So I think you'd get different things. I can inquire from HVA if they like prefer,
Yeah.
if they're trying to standardize
Yeah.
a time.
Yeah, see what they want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then will it be a weekday, a weekend?
Yeah.
How long?
Should it be an event that like we open to the public to kind of raise awareness?
Yeah.
They must, if they've been doing this, ask them.
Yeah.
Maybe get a little more information.
Because it could, you know, turn some people on to getting interested in just our spaces.
Well, I know at the cleanup, we had that representative from the Torrington High School Conservation Club that was there. They were cleaning and they were asking about it, and Christine was saying, "Oh, we should get them. We should get the high schoolers to come out and do it with us."
Yeah.
So, local groups, even just doing something like that and having the high school group connect with Torrington Trails, you know, it'd be a great kind of fun, interesting thing, and then
Mhm.
connecting those groups.
Yeah. Well, I just found, speaking with, you know, the HVA presentation was very interesting. So,
Yeah.
you know, just,
Yeah, having them there to talk about it
Yeah.
as well. Okay, I'll follow up with them. That's not a problem. And then maybe, you know, since it doesn't seem like people have a real.
You know, maybe November. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just looking for everybody. Well, no,
yeah,
nothing for them, but I
probably
mean, it depends
before
on-
Thanksgiving, it might be nice to just get out there because, you know, it's hard to get through some of the vegetation right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can kind of see further if they're trying to assess habitats, like are there wetlands or vernal pools, you know, in
Yeah,
full
once the
vegetation,
leaves
it's
come
kind
down.
of hard to see.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll definitely follow up with them on that.
Great, thank you. World Cleanup Day, debrief. Any comments?
That was my first experience. So like, how do you guys think it went as far as the amount of stuff that was collected? Was it,
Well,
was
yeah,
it
I think
successful?
we
mean,
filled up
compared
that
to other days?
dumpster. It looked like more stuff than we had in previous cleanup days. So
Oh, nice.
I thought that was pretty good. Um,
How many people you got?
I don't know.
About 25.
Yeah.
So the prior event we had the prior year for Clean Up the World Day, the non-Earth Day one, we had 5 people. So we definitely increased the amount of people.
Yeah.
We increased the amount of stuff that we pulled out.
Mhm.
And we got to clean that specific site where we have the trail grant. So you hadn't been in there before yet,
No,
right?
no,
It's
not at
kind of
all.
cool back there, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it was like a maze because, you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of different directions you can go in.
yeah.
And when I first envisioned it, I thought it was just gonna be like this one long path.
Yeah,
And the one long path is a wetland.
yeah.
Right,
And
right.
I mean, we went off the trails just a little bit. Thought, oh, I had a little cleanup site off
Yeah.
a old campground there, and then one led to another.
Right.
Like, oh my God, it's endless.
Well,
Yeah.
and then, that other man, what is his name,
Yeah.
Tom?
Tom
Okay,
Canepa.
that-
He showed me this one. Did you see it?
Yeah.
It was further down from where we ended up, you know, kind of
Yeah.
stopped there for a while. And on the left, and it was just this huge cleanup that, like, you could spend the whole day with people just cleaning up this area, and you'd almost need some, I don't know, like an ATV with a trailer to help you get this stuff out,
Yeah.
because there's like some big things back there.
Was that actually on the city property or was
That I'm
that
not
on the
sure.
the adjacent parcel?
It's hard to tell because it's right off the path, and you know, we own, you know, kind of a buffer around the tracks, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, there's
how
that,
far off we're
there's
at.
the path that runs that to the north of the trail, the
Yeah.
one that's if you're, on the other side from Ocean State Job Lot Plaza, right?
Yeah.
That goes out to the bridge. I don't know if that's on the property or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's probably right on the edge of the property. You know, there's been talk of acquisition of the neighboring property by the city,
Mm.
which would be wonderful because then we could stay on that side
Yeah.
and we wouldn't have to do a wetland crossing. We could just like shoot
Yeah.
down that.
Oh, yeah,
It'd be wonderful. I hope that ends up
Yeah.
happening.
The
But,
thing is, the longer those items stay there, they look like they've been abandoned. You know,
Yeah.
one site we had cleaned up was abandoned 2 years ago, but stuff was growing on it. It's really hard to move,
Right.
really heavy.
I'm not sure if it landed, but I did reach out to the Charlotte Hungerford, their like trusted contact with the homeless population there. They have someone who makes the interface for the
Mhm.
hospital, and they warned them that we were going to that
Oh,
whole
okay.
site and that the trail was going in and all that stuff. So, you know, some of those areas had been fairly recently abandoned. There was one camp that looked still fresh that was down by North Elm when we went out.
Yeah.
I think the ones that I saw looked like they'd been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
back
didn't,
years.
so that wasn't touched. I kind of was like,
Yeah.
don't recommend touching that, just like
Right.
let it go. When we end up getting the the grant we have is for implementation, so when we get to that step, they'll clear whatever they
Yeah.
have to clear.
But, you know, a lot of people there were first time on that trail. I think
Mhm.
it was good to get everyone out to see what we have for the project, and just it raises awareness, and definitely I think we build up goodwill with the owners of the properties there. So so we clean up all around that area. So yeah, I think it's a win-win to do that.
Yeah.
You had, I think it was you had mentioned that day of that, the idea of working on one location rather than, I guess, when it's Earth Day, people go out to different locations. Do you think that's more successful to just, kind of?
So for Earth Day, it's a little different because I kind of think the event works well. Everyone goes to Cove Park.
Yeah.
Like there's like a nice atmosphere. The
Yeah.
park looks beautiful, and
Yeah.
people are just kind of like go do whatever they feel like they want to do or can do, or clean up by their house or something
Yeah.
like that. But for Clean Up the World Day, I feel like it's a little bit more like people don't show up. They don't really feel
they've never heard
motivated.
of it.
Yeah.
I've heard of it. It's like, oh, I don't know what that is.
So I like focusing that around something specific, so
Yeah.
that we don't have to use that
Yeah.
branding. We could just say clean up this site,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
a little bit, and that seemed to work for this I mean, I think part of it is having Torrington Trail is like, they care about the Red Mountain Trail. They were
Yeah.
critical in
Yeah.
obtaining that property. So of course, they're gonna all be
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
they're
they were
very
a big
good.
part of,
They were,
the
they're very
workforce.
active, great
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yeah.
And, you know, they like promoting the trail too.
Yeah.
That they participate in the grant process.
yeah, this project just worked, this cleanup was really worked out, it was very serendipitous. Also because we're, like you were saying, recording the plaza owners, because they still haven't officially committed to giving a trail easement, which is required
Yeah.
to get over to McDermott and
Okay.
Farley. They're tentatively okay with it, and they're gonna be part of the discussion in developing it, but they're not like, they haven't committed in writing to it.
Yeah.
Right.
They've
right.
committed to talking about it in writing. So the more we can do, at the end, we had all this extra food. Yeah, thanks Karen for getting that, the big Y thing too.
Yeah, that was great.
It all,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is the food, it's whatever, but it was easy at least getting the gift cards.
Yeah.
Because you just have to ask, and there's no like arguing, or not arguing, but you don't have to convince someone to give you something for free. The managers don't care.
Yeah.
But we took all the leftover donuts and stuff to the guys at Town Fair Tire. And they
Oh.
all seemed very appreciative of
Okay,
that.
nice.
Uh,
Well, I think it made a big improvement in that area because you could see the garbage all along the backside of those buildings. And so it was definitely very clean afterwards. And, you know, they were moving their way. We could have spent days in that area to clean up around the river or campground sites. And
Mhm.
so it was just nice to, people are talking about, isn't that a great project? And just helps raise that awareness. So hopefully it gives us good in with property owners for future, those easements that we need.
Let me know if we get any press on it, because the Waterbury Republican had a photographer there, but I didn't see any.
No,
I didn't see any article.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any run before it either. I did the press release, but then someone said that they had come because of something in the newspaper.
Oh,
So someone ran it,
yeah.
but like maybe in a very tiny thing in the printed.
I
And,
saw it was in a side column.
yeah, and
Piece,
someone
yeah.
read it and
Yeah.
came. So we had at
But,
least one person.
But the
come.
photographer just didn't show up at the beginning. He was out on a trail with us.
Yeah, he was taking a lot of
and,
pictures and
talking to
stuff, too.
people, so
I
he
have
was-
an online, our office pays for an online subscription. I can try to.
Yeah,
look.
keep your eye out
Yeah,
for it.
check
I
out.
mean,
No, I didn't see it. myself.
usually we get a
Seems like it
call
would be
from
on there by now.
our
It
rep.
should have been on there by now.
Yeah.
If they were gonna do it.
I know, and we had a
It may be only on the online version.
yeah.
Yeah, they do that sometimes depending on how much stuff they print. One idea came up. You know, we had invited a lot of groups to participate, and what one person said, you know, the fishermen, there was it's a trout.
Trout Unlimited.
Trout Unlimited used to be a very active group for the river cleanups.
Yeah.
So maybe in the future we could consider river cleanup to do that. You know, of course you have to be careful how much water's in that river in a
Yeah.
given time. But that used to be a big project to go along the rivers and clean up everything.
And usually September, you're still like, there's still vegetation out and stuff, and it's not. It should be at its lowest, kind of.
Well, this year is
this year was a
unusual.
bad example.
You know, last year would have been a good river cleanup
Yeah.
year, I think, but
Oh, yeah.
not this year. I think we,
Last year was like
More
complete
water.
opposite.
so. Just a thought to, if those fishermen are, if we want to get more attention to our rivers, and great to invite a
Yeah.
group like that
Okay.
has been active.
Yeah.
And, find some synergies. there,
I've
too.
started a master list again of people to reach out to, and so I'll just add them to that list.
Yeah.
There used to be a guy on the commission who was with Trout Unlimited,
Mm,
and he used to get them down there to do river
okay.
when we did stuff.
Okay. I pushed out like 25 Facebook posts to all different groups, so that,
Awesome.
people liked it, like they were aware that we were out there doing that, but didn't really.
Didn't
Yeah,
show
that's
up.
okay. Did you post any pictures afterwards? Or
No.
Maybe we should all try to get pictures out there. 'Cause we have
Yeah.
some good. You had some great pictures.
Yeah.
Taking any-
I got some pictures. Christine got some pictures.
Yeah, can you
Steve
send it
had-
over? I'll
Yeah,
post it.
I'll share the pictures that I have.
Because I don't know if you, I thought one was funny. We were capturing, it was Tom Condeffer. He was standing in the dumpster, but he had found a vacuum cleaner, like a Dyson. It's like, we're cleaning up this town. So he had done work all week long to identify where all spots for cleaning. So he got us to go up to Lover's Lane. And he said, okay, mattresses here, this, so we made several trips around town like that. So if we could just even promote him as a citizens award of some kind for all the work.
A mission
Uh,
to clean up Torrington.
Well,
Yeah.
he did win,
Previous years, right?
last year. What did we give him? The mayor gave him some the good deed award or something.
Yeah.
We nominated him for it because last year's cleanup he did the same. Like he basically did the whole cleanup.
Yeah.
Steve went and picked up all the stuff.
Oh, he put me to
pulled out of
work.
the
We
river.
were there till late at night, picking up all stuff,
Yeah.
Tom's stuff. And
Wow.
we're doing stuff. We're bargaining with these guys that are collecting cans. And so some of these guys around Burger King area, that Columbus Circle
Yeah.
area, they were had bags of returnable bottles and they were stashing in the bushes. And we thought, wow, these were here for the guy's been storing up for months. And his problem was like, there's so many and so heavy, he couldn't get them to store. So Tom was negotiating with him that we'll put him in the truck but we'll pay him some amount. And
Oh.
so we're like, it was the
But and you
funniest.
guys had to put them in the machine.
Yeah, and
and
so
all that? Oh my
so
God.
we descended on Stop and Shop.
Wow.
We looked like a real Motley crew, if you can
I
imagine
can
us.
imagine.
Coming in with all these carriages of
Yeah.
cans and
Wow.
stuff and filling up the machines. So it was really a funny moment of
Yeah.
bartering and getting returnable, getting your money, and then we're still giving more back to the guy. Shows up later on and say, we gave him like $25,
Yeah.
but it's like $50 worth, and so we gave him even more money. That
Oh,
was
nice.
just a funny moment of collaboration there.
Win-win.
Yeah, it was. So another good one, but plenty of ideas for next year. So I guess we can see how we do on Red Mountain Trail next year. Maybe we have to clean up a little bit. I definitely felt good how clean it was.
Find out if that really bad spot is. pretty or not.
Yeah,
That would
Yeah.
Definitely be a place to.
yeah. Well, if it's not, maybe it can be in the future. So that's just a beautiful woodsy area in there. I think it could be a great park in the future. Food Forest planning update. Do we have any updates on that?
No updates from the city or from Park and Rec, but we had looked at some sites that looked promising during the last meeting, and we scheduled a meeting or a time to go out there and look at it, and then the weather didn't.
Oh, it was
cooperate
total
with us.
downpour at 9
Yeah,
o'clock.
it was good that we didn't go out.
Yeah.
But so, just basically rescheduling
Reschedule.
that, I don't know when people want to, some Wednesday in October, if that's.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to pick one now?
Sure.
What do we got? 4th, 11th, 18th. No wonder we're picking Wednesdays. It seems like all my Wednesdays are open. So anyone have a
Wednesdays are good for
preferred
me.
Wednesday?
Not that I know of.
Prefer not the 18th, but maybe like the
How's the
11th.
11th? Yeah, you want to try 11th? Sure. So should we meet at the Sullivan Senior Center, again?
Mm-hmm.
What did we say, 9?
Yeah, if everyone's okay
Yeah.
with that. I know it's easier for you to
Yeah.
be on the
'cause I
earlier
still
side.
go to work
Earlier?
twice a day,
Yep. So 9 o'clock instead of 9:30? Let's do that. So the October 11th. Great. Perfect, and we'll look at those spots. Any other questions on that one?
No, I'm gonna just to get to open space inventory a little bit. I'm gonna throw in a couple other nearby open space properties
Okay.
we can do while we're out there looking at some other ones.
Okay, great. Do we have an update on Red Mountain Trail grant?
Next week is our internal kickoff, so that'll be with Rista Malanka, who's she's done trails in the past, but is economic development. Myself, Paul Kunzen, city engineer, and I think we're gonna have Sergeant Boldus with traffic there too. So I think he's gonna be really important for improvement of signalization at McDermott Street and Elm, because he's gonna have to work with the state on that. That crossing, there is a crossing there, but it's insane and he hates it. It's like 2 lines. Like instead of having a striped crosswalk, it's like a central point. This is kind of, where the burned out factory is here, and then Prospect is right here. Then McDermott is here.
Yeah.
So there's like 2 lines. That's it. They're faded. And that's the
Oh, for the
crossing
last
area for
crossing
the
area.
crossing. So it's like, it's kind of confusing what's even going on.
That building is coming down, that touring company is being demolished. Does
Yeah,
that
they have a-
change anything there?
For this project,
Well, for that crossing. I
it's
mean,
it shouldn't change anything for that. It's kind of on the other side, and this is all would be within the state right away.
Yeah.
But it's all in the state right away. So, our traffic police said it can be done, but it's just, I'm sure, working with DOT on street projects. Yeah. So, we want to get started on that early. So.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to happen right away. That can happen at really any time in the project. If it has to happen for the project, or at least we have to modify it if it can't happen. But anyway.
Would you ever consider something like a rotary there to change out that stoplight?
I mean, that would be
Roundabout.
Roundabout, yeah.
Modern roundabout.
Roundabouts.
DOT would be like, we don't do that.
Well,
No, they've come
they're
around.
putting
They're
around
They're
everywhere,
putting them
yeah.
in. They're putting them in. They finally.
I just saw a new one today in Farmington. It's on 5 2 Mile Road. Got that one. So it was pretty cool. I was surprised where it went in, but it
Yeah.
was.
I just saw a letter. There's
definitely a lot
one
of
that they're
traffic.
planning somewhere else too. No, I can't remember. I don't think it was around here though.
Yeah.
the big intersection redevelopments that I know just offhandedly are they'd love to do East Main and Main Street, like where the bridge is, and like just the mess that
Yeah.
whole area is. I don't know how they would do that, but they'd love to do that.
People have talked about a roundabout for
There.
decades there.
Yeah.
Well, it's been, we've had roundabouts.
I don't know how
on
it would
Bond
work,
v.
but it
Smith.
could, because the bridge makes it complicated, and then the lights are all timed. But
Yeah.
there's been talk of maybe at the very least putting in one of those like AI sort of like learning light things that can
Yeah,
do the
there's-
lighting on.
There's one in New
Yeah.
Haven. It's not, it's a peanut shaped roundabout. That doesn't make any sense, but it works. I mean, because
Yeah.
you go in, and you go in, and you go in, and you go in, like that. So as long as you aren't wedded to a circle, but I mean, it's a really strange
Yeah.
setup, but
Yeah,
you
Well-
sort of go in like, okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
Which is what you wanted people.
I already talked to Paul Kunz about roundabouts around town, so I picked out my favorite spots, but I didn't throw this intersection out there.
Well, we do have another grant that I'm working on is for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program through USDOT, and it's a traffic safety action plan. So it's just again kind of not design, but like coming up with concept, like the big projects, and then once those are in concept, we could reapply for funding.
Right,
That's-
that sounds
uh,
like what that.
for an
deep,
implementation grant,
grant
yeah.
is,
So, that would be where those kind of ideas would come in, and we make sure that the stuff we want gets in the plan.
Yeah,
And then that way it could come up for funding,
Yeah.
for design and implementation. So I'll keep you all posted if you want on that
Yeah,
grant too.
Now,
that
you
was
said-
interesting to me.
is that only an internal conversation, or can a public be invited to that?
That'll have a public component to it for sure, yeah.
At some point, but not
we-
at your kickoff. You're in a
For
figuring
for
out
which one?
for your Red
For
Mountain
the trail? Yeah, that's gonna have lots of public.
at a later time, once you figure out a game plan.
Yeah, so right now we do have preliminary design, but it's bad. That's all I can
Oh.
say about it. It's like BL company did it, and they just ignored the fact that there were wetlands there, and they just did it right through the middle of, and you've seen what that looks like. It's like, they're not gonna permit this. It's like, it's a wetland now. So they didn't have any, they didn't even recognize that it was like cut. They just showed like a gentle graded, like a kind of raised
That's
surface
upsetting.
with grading
You
all
know,
the
you're
way
paying
through.
them a big
Well-
bunch of money, I'm sure, to do.
Yeah, and it
Well,
just,
it's kind of cool keeping old train track, how it was cut into that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
If you could put a boardwalk on top of the bog,
Well-
I think there's a cool factor. to it,
yeah, I mean, I think my opinion ideally would be that if the city took that, would get that other property, if that happens, then we can just move it to where the bird path is now and not even do a wetland crossing. That would be nice.
Yeah.
And it would be easy for wetlands. It would be, right now, when we did the grant, we had to budget in for a potential culvert crossing. And I don't know if you saw that spot, but there's like a, I don't know, 15-foot, like, stream, like width kind of wetland crossing. So you have to get like a big culvert and, and make that crossing. It's just gonna make the whole thing way more expensive. So ideally, we can do that and then have maybe like viewpoints down into it, or, integrate it a crossing at one point, as kind of a point of interest or something, rather than, I think running the whole length of it would just be too expensive. But who knows? So the idea is that we have this design. We're gonna work with our consultants, but I think it'll probably be SLR, to do a redesign of it. And then that'll go to a public, kind of like, the draft will go to the public, an early
Okay.
draft, and then they'll try to incorporate and tweak it,
Yeah.
based on input.
Okay,
But that will get the trails, we'll get the local neighborhoods in, we'll
Yeah.
pull in everyone from that area for that
yeah,
meeting.
great,
Just
great.
out of curiosity, who do you work with, from this?
I don't know, cause that's an engineering, like yeah, I'm not sure exactly. We have worked with them on the, Sue Grossman. Like they're doing design elements for the Sue Grossman further up, so, yeah, I just don't know. I haven't
Sorry,
actually
I was
worked
just
extensively with them yet.
Yeah. Oh, just a minor note on the roundabouts. Paul told me that whenever you touch anything on the state route, you end up having to change all the infrastructure. So you just don't put a roundabout in without changing all the power to lines, crosswalks, everything, which is a requirement. So just talking about that bottom East Main, he like threw out some big numbers, like $10 million to do that.
So we have a project that just bid, it's in Naugatuck, Rubber Avenue, I don't know if you're.
Oh, yeah.
Rubber Avenue.
It's not
but
Naugahyde,
I'm sorry.
not Naugahyde Avenue. No.
So it's Church Street is the state route where it hits Rubber Avenue, and there's a signal there. And the mayor wanted to do a roundabout, and that's what it ended up being. And then there's a section of Rubber Avenue, but it's $10 million. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the roundabout is a big chunk of that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's very extensive
Yeah.
amount of work.
So if you want to see roundabouts, go to Springfield. Everywhere you go
I
is a
know,
roundabout,
it's
but
nice.
very cleverly done, and
Yeah.
you can see how it changes traffic. Traffic just moves,
Moves, yeah.
so which is
And they're
nice.
safer too.
My,
So
my one negative roundabout story was I was living in Washington State for a while, and in like Olympia and the capital there, they have this system of high-speed roundabouts that there's 3 in a row. And like you have to get in the right exit at the beginning. Like you have to memorize it, because it's like once you get into one, you're in this lane, then you have to know when to get
Oh.
over to get into another lane, and it's like it's
Can
insane.
you just go around to get?
Yeah,
So
but
you
it's
keep on
like,
moving around?
then it takes even longer. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess not waiting the light, right? That's what's longer, and
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway.
It'll be in our futures.
All right.
Mhm.
Open space inventory. What do we got?
So yeah, we talked about that. I did want to have one discussion. Be mindful of the time, but I think this would be the last item because I have nothing to report on natural resources inventory. So we've been doing all of these property inspections, filling out the field notes. I've been entering them into an Excel spreadsheet. We've come up with a lot of encroachments, right? At first I was kind of like, oh, I can do a one-off notice to them. Then they started coming in and it's just too much. Like it needs to be prioritized in some way because, I found that I get really good compliance. People tend to, like, when you're on city land, get off, they
Yeah.
generally get off. Whereas when I do zoning enforcement,
They tell you to
they-
get off.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a good way to put it. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
Wow.
You wanna tell people what they're gonna do on
Yeah,
their land
oh,
when
no.
they pay taxes?
Yeah.
It's not fun.
You want nastiness, yeah.
Dan knows.
Okay.
But anyway, but this has been a lot more pleasant. But you can see this is a kind of a list of all of the violations, examples of some of them, most of them are residential, shed and fence,
Yeah.
lawn with cut trees, pool and yard expansion, half an acre of lawn with cars parked on it.
Ooh, that's an ugly one.
On and on and on, right? And I can share this with everyone. You can all take a look at it yourself. But the question is what do we, I wanted to do some kind of prioritization so that I can just run them through some kind of simple thing, and then I'll just do them as I have time,
Yeah.
rather than, working on properties. So that could look a lot of different ways, right? Do we try to get the nicest areas looking the best, right? Like the highest quality, the biggest encroachments solving,
The
what?
parked cars, good.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah,
if they're
that's-
parking cars, doesn't
'Cause
sound
that-
good.
no.
Well, no, we found out buildings on.
Right. So
city property,
does
I would
parking
say that's-
cars, is that worse than building a pool?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, it could be,
it's-
because building, you park the cars on there, you're really compacting it, and they're probably not in the best shape, and they're probably leaking something.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
Well, could you just create a simple form letter, just have a quick checklist, your encroachment is building cars,
Yeah.
stacking brush or,
Yeah.
or cutting vegetation on that, just.
Yeah, cutting vegetation and lawn is not good. but
Yeah, so,
Structures and
But,
cars.
you have a form letter, we
Yeah.
made an observation and we're going to ask you to stop and restore this to its original form, and that this is a warning letter. There will be a follow-up.
So when I send these, I like to, I prefer to give as much information as I can. So
Yeah.
usually what I do is I'll print a map and try to highlight the
Yeah.
area and do all that
So
stuff.
they might not even know where the
Yeah,
line
they don't know
is,
where their
right?
property
Or
line is.
understand, right. That's what takes a lot of time.
Right,
And
Yeah.
so
right.
for each one, it's and then you have to follow up on each one. So then
Yeah.
all of a sudden that's added to, I guess my fear, I think that's a good idea and I'm inclined to do it, but my fear is that I send them all out and I don't have it.
I
That's
would
too
think-
much
oh,
knowledge,
okay.
and maybe people aren't getting
Timelines.
as much
Yeah.
information.
But shouldn't we just, if we walk the property, shouldn't we just send them a letter, just without a lot of fuss, just say, this is our observation, so that they know they've been observed, and hopefully they would stop.
But they don't, but most of the time they don't even know where the lines are.
Really, I would think anyone with a cell phone could figure this out, what their maps are.
I think you'd be surprised at how little sometimes people just kind of do things and ask questions later and people don't want to pay for a survey.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's I like to assume that a lot of it is not purposeful and that they're just kind
It's
of
just like, I
not
thought it was
thinking
over
and they're,
there.
right,
Or
it's
when
the
they bought
woods,
it,
no
they-
one is there.
And when they bought it, the realtor said the property line's over there.
I think that happens a lot
What do
too.
you, because you do this sort of regularly, what do you think the priorities?
I mean, I think it could be handled in a lot of different ways. I mean, first, there's certain ones that are pet rest things that I want to do, and that's where that's where I get all off the rails, where I'm like, oh, that seems like a good one. That doesn't, but I don't want to be completely arbitrary. The half an acre lawn with cars parked, I'm like, if we get rid of that, then it's like a half an acre meadow for
Yeah.
our portfolio is a pretty substantial thing,
Yeah.
right? It's a habitat all of a sudden instead of a giant lawn with cars parked in it.
Yeah.
So that's a size thing, I guess, size
Yeah.
of the encroachment.
How many
Structures are, hard
Structures.
because they fall down and then they become trash or
Or they keep using them and expanding.
they claim adverse possession.
Yeah.
So
Is
You
this
can't claim
the,
adverse possession with the city.
with the
owns it.
city, on
No.
city property? Okay, well, that's good.
is this just a offender list, or is this all the open property? How many?
This is an offender. This is all the properties and then what the encroachments are. I think
Okay.
I think they're in by parcel though. It's no, that's fine. Yeah, it's not by individual. It's just by property and what the offenses are, and then I'd have to go like let's say, the property on Greenwoods Road, or whatever the property on Greenwoods Road. Lawn expansion, this, and then on that property maybe there's 5 landowners that are offending in different ways on that property. So this list is, all of the encroachments if there are any, but then it's also compounded because multiple small lots are doing little things
things,
to the
yeah.
property.
Yeah. Could
That's
you
another
just-
question. Do we pick a property and like hit all of them so that it's clean and good, or do
Yeah.
we just pick the
Well, if you
worst ones?
No, if they're all in the same area, you pick one, you're gonna get hammered for, picking on one person, but not my
But
neighbor. My
not the
neighbor's
others.
not the other,
Yeah,
so,
how about this guy?
yeah, if they're all like 5 in a row, you gotta do all 5.
But
at the
if you
same time.
manage the one site though, that would be helpful, because
Yeah.
you're familiar with that one,
Yeah.
one property.
That's true.
So,
You're gonna really,
So
you
maybe by
really get
location.
hammered.
and that probably be more manageable than, managing 30 properties.
I would go with like
Uh,
cars and structures first.
So if we're gonna do by location, we do it by offense, like what has the worst things on it, or what's the highest quality property?
I would just do the first stuff. I mean, you've got cars and structures. I mean, that's pretty damn serious.
Okay.
I'm not worried about too much about a fence, but if they're building a pool and sheds and God knows what else.
And the most offensive of the offenses are like large in size. I'm just gonna use this as a scaffold to build some kind
Yeah.
of prioritization. Large in
Okay.
size, permanent structures.
Permanent structures.
Right, because like one thing that you see a lot that's obviously less important is mowing.
Yeah.
Right. If someone's mowing in a city property, yes, you could get them to restore it, and it's a benefit,
Stop
but it's
mowing.
not right. But it's also not as big of a. If someone's mowing a little, you could always come back years later, tell them to stop mowing after you get the
Yeah.
big stuff done.
Yeah.
And
But
it-
what
it'll
if they're
restore it
cutting
for you.
down trees though? How far does it go? What is
Yeah.
more
Right.
important?
Right.
Like I'd be concerned about structures because
Yeah.
they'll make a claim that could get ugly.
Permanent
And what if
structures.
someone's gets hurt on one of these structures? and
Yeah.
It's not even on
It's a
their-
liability
right?
thing.
Is it
Yeah.
a liability?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, even the pool.
Okay.
Because
So-
there's some dumping, people are just taking their junk and just dumping it in the
Yeah.
back.
So by location, so essentially when we say by location, find the location with the worst offenses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Structures and cars. Sheds, pools.
Yeah, because if you imagine you're going to do it once and then that neighborhood would be aware, of one neighbor will tell another, you can't do that because
It's- yeah.
your line's going to be right
I like
here
that
and
idea, yeah.
you should be warned
There's
because,
buzz in the neighborhood that all of a
Sure.
sudden
Yeah.
we know that there's
Yeah.
a property that we
Yeah.
know that there's they're watching.
they'll probably forget about it in 20 years, but
Right.
for.
That's the
Somebody's-
nature. That's the nature of this work, right?
Right.
Is that it? I mean, my dream is that we post these. I'll be posted. But we don't have the surveys on a lot of them, or like we would
Yeah.
need to get the boundaries remarked. Because I'm not going to go looking for pins. I don't have the time. So
Yeah.
then that's a whole nother thing. Is like, who's going to pay for that?
Really good.
But if you just put it on a website, say, here's the city properties and,
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, I mean, ideally we have it like on a tree saying city property, and people would be, at least the honest ones are like, oh, okay, like I know there's a line there, and I won't go near it.
Well, you could be like the health district. Maybe you sign a score. On, how are you as a property owner?
I-
Oh, you're a low scorer, Dan.
I don't know where my property lines are, but anyway.
I did send the local engineering schools earlier this year or in the summer. I said, do you have like surveying programs where you'd be willing to like teach your students how to survey on one of our conservation properties and give us a product? And a couple of them said yes, but they haven't really. I can follow up with them, but
okay.
it's been a low priority for me. But that could be something that we could bang out at least like 1 or 2 properties or something
Okay.
like that. But
Good.
we'll see if that actually happens. I'll
Good.
try.
Okay.
Good idea.
You got anything else?
No, we have item F, natural resource inventory.
No progress on that. We
Okay.
have our GIS guy, Dave Scherf, who's absolutely amazing. He kind of has been working on it for me a little bit, which has been really nice. But so right now at this point, the digital stuff is all in there. It's a story map, so like all of the maps are all set up. But I just need to get in there and do the narrative, like the written descriptions behind them in the story map, and that's just something that I probably have to volunteer and just do on my own when I'm at
Great.
home. So.
Is there any other comments before we adjourn to any items of interest? Anything? Okay, we covered. Okay, thanks. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
motion carries. Thank you.
And when is the next meeting?
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Aaron.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Who made the motion? Was it Dan?
Yeah.
Dan and Karen second. And the next meeting is